Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish, and with me, Adam Limerick and Ben Snyder from Grid Live Encore. Link in the video description to his YouTube channel, also to our Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. Invest in Grid Network like Colin, Mark, and Deshell. Our monthly support helps keep the bills down, and you can also do a one-time contribution. Use the Buy Me a Coffee link. As little as $5 will be greatly appreciated. Any amount, really, especially. Next weekend, we have 5 races to cover, but this weekend, only one, the NASCAR Cup Series at Phoenix Racing, the Ruoff Mortgage 500, and Chase Briscoe came away with a win, a first-time winner at NASCAR's highest level, holding off Ross Chastain and Tyler Reddick, both of those drivers who are still looking for their first career win.
That's right, Kobe. Not only do we have a first-time winner, but Chase Briscoe, as Mike Joy mentioned on the broadcast, the 200th driver to win in the NASCAR Cup Series. It is still a very exclusive club when you consider how many drivers have strapped into a NASCAR Cup Series car. Briscoe brought the 14 car for Stewart Haas Racing into victory lane and actually led all 4 SHR cars to top 20 finishes. Kevin Harvick finished in the top 10, extending his streak at Phoenix to 18 consecutive races in the top 10 there. That ties the NASCAR record as well. Almirola 12th, Custer 16th. Daytona 500, we mentioned Chase Briscoe's impressive top 3 finish there, and it looked like he could lead. So, Kobe, my first question to you here is, Chase Briscoe's in his second season now. He looked very strong in the lower divisions of NASCAR. Can he be the new leader at Stewart Haas Racing when Kevin Harvick eventually retires? And is Stewart Haas Racing back?
Well, Stewart Haas Racing is back in victory lane, and quite a win that was for Chase Briscoe. I won't go as far to say that he's the new leader of Stewart Haas right now, but I believe he's been groomed to be the future leader of that team once Kevin Harvick retires. I feel like Kevin Harvick is still that team leader right now, the seasoned veteran who those young drivers can lean on, and Eric Almirola also a leader with the organization. You have Chase Briscoe, Cole Custer there as well. And compared to last season, if you're Stewart Haas Race, I think you definitely have to be pleased how 2022 is starting off, because last season that did not look up to form at all like the Stewart Haas Racing that we're all accustomed to. So far this season is really been going well for them. Unfortunately for Eric Almirola, his 100% top 10 finish rate came to an end today with that 12th place finish, but still, all in all, a good day for all 4 SHR cars.
Yeah, I think right now Kevin Harvick is still the leader at Stewart Haas Racing. Once he eventually retires, I think it will be Chase Briscoe. And what a run for that Indiana kid today, driving the number 14 car, a car that we all know that used to be run by another person from the Hoosier State, Tony Stewart. Really cool to see Chase Briscoe get his first career win and 200th win in the NASCAR Cup Series. You think about all the drivers that have won in this series throughout the years, and that's now Chase Briscoe can say he's on the list, and he joins people like Earnhardt, Gordon, Johnson, Yarborough, Petty, among others, who have won in the NASCAR Cup Series. And is Stewart Haas Racing back? Well, I think, once we get later on in the season, if we see Kevin Harvick, Eric Almirola, and Chase Briscoe have all good runs, I think we'll say SHR is back. Right now, I think it's still too early to say.
Yeah, well, it's always tough to come into the Cup Series as a rookie, but we have seen some great signs from Chase Briscoe so far this season, and to be fair, last season as well. I know it was a down year for Stewart Haas, but looked like he was maybe in the mix for that win at the Indianapolis Road Course, and then we all know what happened with Denny Hamlin there. But he has had some strong runs and some strong showings, and certainly looks like he could be a future star of the sport. And for the Fords today, it was really a strong run for a lot of them. We had 2 Stewart Haas cars, 2 Penske cars, and Chris Buescher from RFK Racing in the top 10. So Ford's making up exactly half of the top 10 spots. Ryan Blaney came in 4th place for Penske, but had to be disappointed as he did lead the most laps, but lost the lead on pit road and was never able to regain it. Yesterday, we said Blaney was hit or miss. He was a hit most of the race. The ending, however, was a miss when you consider how he was running for the majority of the race. So, Adam, we'll start with you this time. How disappointing is it for Ryan Blaney to miss out on this win?
It was disappointing. Ask Kyle Busch about how disappointed he was. He came so close to winning last weekend in his home track in Las Vegas. Ryan Blaney had a strong car all day long in that Menards Ford for Team Penske, and I truly thought he was going to get the win. But Ryan Blaney, he will win this year. Don't get me wrong. He could win next weekend in Atlanta. Weird for me to say a restrictor plate track now. But he was this close of winning in the Valley of the Sun today. And he has to be really, really disappointed that he didn't get the outcome that he wanted. A top 5 finish was nice, but I know he wanted to win really badly.
Yeah, top 5 finish is great, but if you're Ryan Blaney, it's hard not to be disappointed with how things are going. He had arguably the fastest car all weekend long, and arguably the fastest car in the entire race itself. But there's mistakes on pit road, speeding, and then slow stops on pit road. I remember looking up at the Fox graphics and saying, like, almost every single time he went to pit road, he lost spots. I remember at one point he lost 4 spots on pit road. So as a team, this was quite a loss for them because they had the car to get it done, but failed to capitalize on today's speed. And it's going to be interesting to watch Ryan Blaney and his number 12 team try to rebound from this big miss today. But there's some tracks coming up on the Cup Series schedule that he's had some success at. So he'll be able to put this one behind him fast and move on, thinking about Atlanta starting tomorrow morning, Monday morning.
Yeah, well, I think we would certainly consider Ryan Blaney a favorite at Atlanta, except Atlanta is a bit of an unknown, so it's kind of hard to predict what we're going to see. And when that's the case, it's hard to predict the winner. But Ryan Blaney, I'm sure, will be up there in the mix, not just next weekend at Atlanta, but all throughout the rest of the 2022 season. I think it's probably only a matter of time before he gets a victory of his own. Now, through 4 races, we have 4 different winners, 2 from Chevrolet, 2 from Ford. Penske and Stewart Haas have 1 win each to make up the 2 Ford wins. Hendrick, of course, have 2 wins on their own. Richard Childress Racing saw Tyler Reddick in the top 5, as well as Austin Dillon having a strong run until it went wrong in the last set of corners there. Trackhouse had both of their teams in the top 10 as well. So, Kobe, starting with you, do you think we'll see another Chevrolet team win before Toyota gets their first win?
Well, Ben, I think it's really hard to say because you mentioned Atlanta being one of the big unknowns next week. We have no idea what we're going to see, and if we're going to see a whole bunch of drafted there, since they're going to be running the Super Speedway package, you have to think about Denny Hamlin. He's this generation, I guess you can say, Mr. Restrictor Plate, because he's really good on those super speedways. So if it comes down to a situation like that, I think Denny Hamlin could certainly be in contention to win next week. But since Toyota is a bit behind Chevrolet and Ford, it's really hard to bet on Toyota to get a win coming up. So I think the possibility of seeing a Chevy team win again before Toyota does is certainly a higher possibility.
Yeah, I agree with Kobe. I think we'll see Chevrolet get another win before we see Toyota get their first win. But you mentioned Atlanta. Unknown, restrictor plate, track, higher banking. We don't know what to expect until we see practice. So I think once we see practice at Atlanta, I think we'll know who the top teams are going to be. But I think we'll see a Chevrolet win before Toyota, and I wouldn't be surprised if, coming from the Chevrolet camp, don't be surprised if Team Trackhouse Racing wins these next couple of weeks. They've been strong all season long. Ross Chastain had a good, solid finish today. He came close to winning, and Daniel Suarez had another top 10 finish. So a team to look out for on the rise who who could score a win in Atlanta? Team Trackhouse.
I completely agree with you guys. I think when you look at how RCR and Trackhouse have stepped up their game this year, of course, Trackhouse have a lot of momentum on their side, as does RCR now with the strong runs that we've seen Tyler Reddick put in. I think it's only a matter of time before at least one of those cars from one of those teams pulls into victory lane. It could well happen before Toyota. I think we'll get to Toyota in a second here. Let's see. First, we have a comment from Amber. Will Chastain have won? What I assume she means would Chastain have won or done better at Auto Club without the practice crash? So we can go to one of my colleagues here. See if we can put us back on full screen. What do you guys think? Did Chastain have a better shot if he hadn't had that issue of practice at Auto Club?
Yep. I think he would have had a good, strong finish, and I think he could have won. It's called he is due for a win, and I don't think it's a matter of time before the Watermelon Man gets his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Adam. I think if Chastain hadn't had that practice crash, he would have definitely had a higher chance of winning that race. And you mentioned Watermelon Man. I think you need to get all the watermelons ready, because within the next couple of weeks, I think we're going to see a watermelon getting smashed at the start finish line. That's Ross Chastain's trademark there. He wins a race, he smashes a watermelon and picks it up off the ground and takes a bite.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to think Trackhouse probably have some melons in on their pit box in storage waiting to be used. And, I think Ross Chastain, it was a bit of a slow start to his Cup Series career with the top teams. I know he's been doing a lot of races with Premium and Spire in the past, but, we saw him put in some good runs here or there with Ganassi, but this year he's been absolutely on fire to start this season. So I think, Kobe, I think you're absolutely right. We're going to see a melon smash sooner rather than later. May even happen before we see one of the Toyotas pull into victory lane, and I think you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, while we saw Hendrick Motorsports, Stewart Haas Racing, Team Penske, and Richard Childress Racing up front at top 10. Toyotas, quite a long day for them. Martin Truex Jr. got up in the top 10 for a bit, barely in the top 10. He had a tire go down, hard hitting the wall, ended his day. And this was the driver who was the defending winner of this race and finished second to Kyle Larson last year in the championship. And he did not look like the same Martin Truex Jr. that we're used to seeing at Phoenix. But all in all, Kurt Busch managed to get a top 5 for 2311 race, and his brother Kyle got 7th last weekend. Toyota was looking at a 1-2 finish until that late race caution brought up by Eric Jones and Bubba Wallace. And for the first time since 2018, Toyota's entering the 5th race of the season without a win. Does Toyota need to reevaluate their next-gen car, especially here where there's a championship on the line the next time NASCAR heads out west to Phoenix?
If you think back to 2018, we were talking about a big three by the middle of the season with Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr., and Kyle Busch. And 2 of those 3 drivers drove Toyotas. So they didn't have to hit the panic button in 2018. I don't think they need to hit the panic button just yet here either. You ask, does Toyota need to reevaluate the next-gen car? I think everybody needs to still evaluate this car. It's only been on track for 4 races. So everybody's still getting used to it. They're still learning new things about it. I think they're only going to continue to get better as the season goes on, and that's true for all 3 manufacturers. So everybody has to keep developing and step up their game to ensure that they don't fall behind the other 2. And Toyota's no different there. And we, in terms of the bad luck that they've had so far, not pulling into victory lane, we just said it last weekend. They were looking at a 1-2 finish before a late caution came out and kind of changed everything. So there's always some sort of luck or fortune that has to be on your side in this sport. And it simply hasn't been on Toyota's side just yet, but it's a long season with 36 races. You can count on Toyota getting in victory lane sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah, Ben, I have to agree with you. It's still too early. I think once we get into the middle of the season, I think we'll see Toyota get into victory lane. Kind of weird to see him not win so far. And you mentioned they came so close last weekend in Las Vegas to have a 1-2. But I think we will see Toyota in victory lane. It's just a matter of time. Which Toyota? Well, it'll be from Joe Gibbs Racing. Which driver? That is still up in the air. All those drivers have a shot to win.
And next we have a comment in the chat room from Amber saying, so the team carries a watermelon to every race. Amber, I don't know the exact answer to that question, but all of Ross Chastain's wins, they seem to have a watermelon sitting out there behind the pit box. So I assume they carry a watermelon to every race. And like Ben was saying, I'm sure Team Trackhouse has the watermelons ready to go because once Ross Chastain wins, one of those watermelons getting smashed. And I totally agree with what Ben was saying about everyone needs to reevaluate their next gen car, some more than others, like Toyota, because it's still a brand new car, still learning things about it, and they're gonna be making a lot of improvements throughout the season as they continue to develop this brand new race car. And you're right, Ben. Toyota does not need to panic so far because it's only been a couple of races so far this season. There's a long season to go. Still over 30 weeks of racing left in the NASCAR Cup Series. So they have a lot of time to get their next gen car exactly where they need it to be. But they certainly need to unlock some more potential in that car if they want to catch up to the Chevrolets and Fords and be a lot more competitive with them. And now we've had a super speedway, a 2 mile track, a mile and a half, the mile track at Phoenix, and next weekend, what many are calling a mini super speedway with the new Atlanta Motor Speedway. 28 degrees of banking in the corners, and for perspective, Daytona has 31 degrees of banking, so only a 3 degree difference there. Starting with you, Adam, do you think any manufacturer is going to have an advantage in Atlanta? We saw Ford's dominated Daytona. Can they do it again in Atlanta?
Well, Kobe, it's Atlanta is an unknown. They now have a restrictor plate at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and we've never seen that in the past. You're gonna have a brand new surface, progressive banking. Like I mentioned earlier, I think once we see practice, we'll see who is a contender for the win at Atlanta Motor Speedway. I think it's going to be interesting to see how everything develops. The first 4 weeks of this NASCAR Cup season the racing has been incredibly awesome. This is what the fans wanted. This is what the drivers wanted. And going in to Atlanta Motor Speedway, I think it'll be just the same. Once we have practice, I think after that we'll know who the contenders are at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yeah, I completely agree. I need to see a practice session or something before I start handing out the title of favorite to anybody. This is just something that we've never seen before, and I don't know that any of us is going to have any good idea of what kind of racing we're going to exactly be seeing until we see it out on track and in practice rather than in theory. So, we did see the Fords dominate Daytona. I guess you could say if you had to pick an early favorite, that maybe makes the Fords your selection there, but this is, I don't think, going to be exactly like Daytona. It may resemble Daytona, maybe a mini Daytona in some respects, but to completely base it off of what we saw at Daytona with this next-gen car, I don't know that it's going to be exactly the same. So with that being said, it's hard for me to pick a favorite just yet.
Yeah, it's hard to pick a favorite, and it's going to be extremely difficult for us to pick a winner next weekend, considering we're going to be doing that before we even see anything on the track. So basically, I guess we need a NASCAR Cup Series Wheel of Destiny for pick a winner this weekend at Atlanta because of how unpredictable it is. So it's really hard to say who's going to have an advantage, who's going to be struggling, and all of that. And some comments from some of the drivers this weekend at Phoenix. Michael McDowell said he believes it's going to be like Daytona and Talladega with all the drafting, and Denny Hamlin had an opposing opinion, saying he don't think it's going to be anything at all like Daytona and Talladega. He thinks it's going to be depending on how the teams are going to set up their cars. Will depend on the type of racing that we'll see. So, yeah, but in reality, we really have no idea what we're going to see, and that's one of the great things about racing. Sometimes the great unknown, and we have all three NASCAR National Series at Atlanta next weekend: Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. And starting with you, Ben, how close will the teams and manufacturers be watching the Truck and Xfinity races to get an idea of what they need to do next Sunday?
Man, I don't know. Any other year, I would say very closely. All eyes would be on it, but just, this next gen car is so different and such an unknown in and of itself. I don't know how much we're really going to be able to carry over. The car is so radically different compared to what we see in Xfinity and trucks, even, from the package that we've seen the last few years in the Cup Series. Now we have a brand new car coming in. Obviously they'll be watching it. I think they'll get some sort of sense and some sort of idea. But again, I don't know what the benefit would be. We talked, a lot of times in recent years of drivers maybe running the Xfinity race or running the truck race to gain some experience for Sunday. I don't know how beneficial that would be here. In theory, I don't think we're going to see any of that. Of course, they've dialed that way back, generally speaking, in the last few years here. I don't know. It's very difficult for me to make any sort of predictions for next weekend, just because the track is going to be so radically different than anything we've ever seen before. So will they be watching the truck and Xfinity race? Absolutely. But again, not sure how much you're going to be able to take away from that.
I completely agree with you, Ben. The Xfinity car is different from the next gen car. A different body type. How close will it? It's going to be hard. It's the first time we've been to Atlanta since they repaved it, since they did the progressive banking. The Cup drivers will watch, the Xfinity Series race and Truck Series race, and Amber says, will there be a big one? Amber, that's a good question. I have no idea, but I'll ask that to my fellow colleagues. Will there be a big one next Sunday in Atlanta, like we've seen at Daytona and Talladega? I'll start with you, Ben.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes. I hope there isn't. I hope it's relatively clean, but you think of how tight the racing gets at Daytona, Talladega, and how massive those tracks are, how wide they are. You put that down on a mini super speedway, as we seem to be calling what this Atlanta is going to be. If that is in fact how the racing ends up playing out, I think a big one is kind of inevitable. I hope it doesn't happen, because I know we're still short for parts here with this next gen car, and obviously you never like to see big accidents, for the safety, and obviously these teams' budgets going up in smoke when that happens. I hope it doesn't, but I fear it's inevitable.
Yeah, I feel like a big one could be inevitable, especially if we see pack racing at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And yesterday in Grid Live pre-race, when talking about Atlanta, the big thing I'm worried about is green flag pit stops. Unlike Daytona and Talladega, where at those two super speedways, it's a straight shot getting into pit road. But with Atlanta, you're coming off the banking to get into pit road. I'm afraid someone could get run over. We could see a big crash in the corners there, if that's the type of racing we're going to see. And definitely all eyes are going to be on all three races this weekend, trucks, Xfinity, and Cup, because this is a different beast, something we haven't seen before. A 1.5 mile track with 28 degrees of banking, only 3-degree difference with Daytona International Speedway. So we have no idea what we're going to expect this weekend in Atlanta. So definitely a lot of people are anxiously awaiting for the next few days to pass by, so we can see what the new Atlanta is going to look like. And next, time for a quick racer spotlight and taking a look at some of the female racers that competed this weekend. Big congratulations to the racer known as Quick Gabby on her big win in GT4 this weekend. Carrie Schreiner also won in GT3. NHRA also had Krista Baldwin in Topfield. She was eliminated in round 2. Same for Alexis DeJoria and Funny Car, eliminated in round 2. Unfortunately, Leah Pruitt, D&Q. Be sure to follow the racers, Girls Behind the Helmet, link in the video description below. J.R. Todd qualified for Funny Car and was eliminated in round 2. Roger Caruth, a guest on Life on the Grid, finished 4th in the Arca Menard Series race on Friday night in Phoenix. Bubba Wallace finished 22nd today in the Cup race. A long day for him. Link in the video description below to follow the African American Racers Association. And none of the Racing Pride LGBTQA ambassadors were competing this weekend, but we have a link to their website to follow Racing Pride.
Thank you, Kobe. Now time for a look at the NASCAR playoff picture. Of course, it is still very early, but 4 drivers have already punched their ticket to the NASCAR playoffs. However, if we do somehow get more than 16 winners, there is a unique process of points that comes into play, albeit it is unlikely. And we talked about Hendrick being hard to beat. We have for a while on this show. Now we have Stewart Haas Racing in victory lane. And no driver, we talked about this as well, has a 100% top 10 finish rate. Only two with a 75% top 10 finish rate. That's Eric Almirola, who saw his streak end today, and Kyle Busch. So, Adam, we'll start with you on this one. As I mentioned, we've never had more than 16 winners in the regular season, but you've got to get 4 of 4 before you can get 17 of 26. So does that mean that this year's parity maybe is suggesting that winning could be even more important than it's ever been?
Yeah. And, we have this new next-gen car, and we've seen for the first few weeks of this NASCAR season, the racing has been incredibly close, and I think a win in this next gen car is going to help a lot once we get into the playoffs. In I will say this: I think we will see some first time winners before we get into the playoffs. Who do I think will win before we get into the playoffs? I think Tyler Reddick will win. I believe Ross Chastain will win. I believe Daniel Suarez will win. So a win in this next-gen car, it is going to help a lot, especially when we get closer and closer and into the playoffs.
Yes, I feel like we could have quite a bit of first-time winners this season, and also stacking it up against the drivers who have already won races before. I think it's going to be very competitive this season. We talked about all the different winners we had last season. I think we could potentially have more winners this season than we had last season. I don't know if we're going to get more than 16 different race winners. That would be an incredible amount of parity if it gets to that point. But if you want to feel safe about getting in the playoffs, I think you definitely have to go out there and win a race like any other year. I wouldn't want to try to punt my way in, because the way this season is going, I think we could very well have at least over 12 different winners in 2022.
And of course, the next race is the 5th of 2022, and we have another interesting stat for you all. Only 3 drivers have a 50% top 5 finish rate so far. That's Kyle Larson and a couple of guys that were in the mix for the win today, the eventual winner, Chase Briscoe, and Ross Chastain. Now, everybody's probably expecting Kyle Larson to be strong coming off of a dominant season he had last year. But for Briscoe and Chastain, it's been a very impressive start to the season for those two drivers. So, Kobe, we'll go to you first this time. Do you think Ross Chastain is playoff material right now?
If Team Trackhouse can keep up his current form and improving each week, I certainly think Ross Chastain can be playoff material. And you mentioned Ross Chastain's having a tough start to his Cup Series career. He ran for a couple of back markers, just riding around, getting experience, not necessarily, going out there finishing well and all of that, because the equipment he was in, you mentioned Premium Motorsports and Inspire, they were really just out there doing the best they could with the equipment that they were given. So I feel like that was valuable experience for Ross racing at the Cup level, although he was running in the 30s most weeks, not really competitive at all in a competitive ride. And then last season, with finally getting a big call up to race at Ganassi, Ross had a really tough start to the 2021 season. He had a lot of things go wrong, and then towards the end of the season, really seems like he was putting things together, and got the call that Chip Ganassi Racing been sold to Trackhouse Racing, and then it seemed like Ross Chastain's NASCAR future was up in the air again. Then Justin Marks called him. The deal was done, and they kept that Ganassi team together that Ross was working with last year, which is going to be good. So yes, he's going to a new team, but he's surrounded around a lot of familiar faces, so they don't have to start over and rebuild that chemistry. The chemistry is already there, and they're just getting better each week. I think continuing that was really important for Trackhouse to keep that 42 team from 2021 together, bring them over to the one car at Trackhouse this year. And I think Ross Chastain is certainly going to make the playoffs this year if he keeps his up. In a question chat room from Amber saying, is Ross Chastain really the same team, just a new number and owner? Yeah, Amber, that is basically what it is. This is basically the team he's driving for now with Trackhouse, the one team, is basically the Chip Ganassi Racing number 42 team from last year.
Is Ross Chastain playoff material right now? To me, absolutely. He has had a strong start to this 2022 NASCAR Cup Series season. And like I've said, I don't think it's long until we see Ross Chastain in victory lane and securing his spot in the NASCAR playoffs. And Team Trackhouse has looked strong all season long. So to me, Ross Chastain playoff material, absolutely. And I think he'll just get stronger as the season goes forward.
Yeah, it's certainly been a very impressive start to the year for Ross Chastain. And like I said, I don't think very many people will be surprised at this point if he pulls into victory lane. We have another comment from Amber here. Is the 42 team a new team then? Yes, it is actually. It is a partnership with GMS Racing and Richard Petty Motorsports, back up to 2 cars with that GMS partnership, and Ty Dillon behind the wheel. And speaking of first-time winners, who knows? Maybe even Ty Dillon might throw his hat in the mix there as well. We saw a very strong run at Auto Club with his teammate Eric Jones. So it looks like you want to talk about even another Chevrolet team that might have a chance at getting up there and mixing things up with the Hendricks, the RCRs, the track houses of the world. You might look at the 42 and 43 cars to do just that.
Yes, and also one thing about Ty Dillon, he had a really quiet day, but a good day in Phoenix. Got a top 15 finish. It seems like Eric Jones has been a little bit ahead of his teammate in the 42 car with the good strong start he's had to the season. Ty Dillon at 42 team's been a little bit behind the 43, but Ty Dillon, good finish today. They keep building, and both Petty GMS cars can be up there contending like we saw Eric Jones do at Fontana. So I definitely think that we won't have a lot of shortage. First time winners this season. I think it's going to be super competitive throughout. And we're 3 Sundays away now from the 2022 grid ranking from kicking off. Today's race was the second event to have 36 cars in the field, so this lowers the NASCAR field count in the grid ranking to 36. The most common field size in NASCAR is used in the grid ranking. Next weekend is going to be huge. We have 4 series in the grid ranking competing. NASCAR with their 5th race of 2022, IndyCar 2nd race, which makes them eligible for the grid ranking. Same with MotoGP in Indonesia, a new track, and Formula One returns with their season opener, the Bahrain Grand Prix. Scott McLaughlin at Texas, and Nea Bastianini in Indonesia, both trying to win 2 in a row. Which race and series is most likely to produce a surprise winner? Formula One, IndyCar, MotoGP, or NASCAR?
I think you have to go with NASCAR. We've been talking about it all show. It's such an unknown what we're facing next weekend. And, I think we talked the whole show about a whole slew of drivers that are looking for their first wins and teams that have run strong that could give them their first wins. So I think when you look at all these series, it's tough for me to think of a surprise winner in Formula One unless it's a midfield or backmarker team playing some strategy. I think any of the top 4 teams have shown in testing that they could be strong enough, and we wouldn't be completely shocked if it was a win there. IndyCar, MotoGP, I just don't see nearly as many variables, even though MotoGP is going to a new track. I think this NASCAR track is so radically different that's your best shot. And also with the parity we've seen this year, that's your best shot at seeing a surprise winner next weekend.
Yeah, I think it'll come from NASCAR. With Atlanta Motor Speedway having new surface, progressive banking, I think we could see a surprise winner next weekend. But MotoGP goes to a brand new track, like y'all mentioned. It's going to be a challenge for those riders in Indonesia. IndyCar goes to Texas Motor Speedway, an oval. We'll see how how will Jimmy Johnson do in an IndyCar at Texas Motor Speedway, and how will Romain Grosjean do in IndyCar at Texas Motor Speedway? Will they surprise us with a top 5 finish? And we can't forget Formula One kicks off their season next weekend with the Bahrain Grand Prix. And also IMSA has their 12 Hours of Sebring at Sebring International Raceway. So you want a surprise winner? I think comes from NASCAR.
Yeah, a lot of racing next weekend. You mentioned MSET Sebring, the Super Sebring weekend. Also, can't forget on Friday afternoon got the season opener of the 2022 World Endurance Championship season. 1,000 miles of Sebring or 8 hours, whichever one comes first. So definitely action-packed weekend. No shortage of action to talk about here at Grid Network. And I agree with both of you. Probably gonna see a surprise winner. Well, most likely to see a surprise winner in NASCAR in Atlanta because so many variables as you mentioned and just a lot of unknown. It's been a while since we've had so much unknown head into a NASCAR Cup Series weekend. Well, I guess since last year when we had the Bristol Dirt Race, probably for the first time since then. And out of the 5 series in the grid ring that have already started, none of them have had a repeat winner. That means no repeat winner in Formula E, NASCAR, World Rally Championship, and IndyCar and MotoGP have only run one race so far, but race 2 coming up next weekend. So out of the series we've been talking about, which series is most likely to see a repeat winner? IndyCar, MotoGP, or NASCAR?
Wow, Kobe, that's a hard question to answer. But I guess if I had to choose one series, I'm going to go out and say, I'll go out and say NASCAR. Yeah, I know we've talked about Atlanta Motor Speedway, a lot here on the wrap-up show, but it's a restrictor plate track now, and we all know, as Darrell Waltrip has said, anybody can win at Daytona and Talladega. I guess now we have to throw Atlanta Motor Speedway into the mix. And Amber said, Kyle Larson for me next week? Maybe. But you'll just have to stick around for next Saturday's pre-race show. That's still to be determined, Amber.
I feel like we're contradicting ourselves based on the last question that we asked here, but I'm going to go with NASCAR as well. I know we just said they're the most likely to get a surprise winner, but you do the math. They've had 4 winners this year. IndyCar, MotoGP, obviously only running one race. 4 is greater than 1, so I think when you have 4 drivers to choose from, all of which I think could certainly pull off a victory again next weekend. That's probably the most likely series to come from. I have to be honest with our viewers. I don't follow MotoGP as closely, so I'm probably not the most qualified to speak on the situation there. But you think of Scott McLaughlin, still relatively new to the ovals. I wouldn't put it past him. I know he did run strong at Texas in his previous attempt there, but I've got to think there's other drivers with more experience that are probably more likely to pull off a win there on the IndyCar side of things. So once again, I think the answer has to be NASCAR.
Yeah, and with that being said, it's now time for our grid one shining moment from this Motorsports weekend. We had the ARCA Menard Series and Xfinity Series and also the NASCAR Cup Series run at Phoenix International Raceway. So I'll start with you, Ben. What's your grid one shining moment from this Motorsports weekend?
Well, my true one shining moment has to be Taylor Gray and getting that win in the ARCA Series for David Gilliland Racing after the tragedy, losing their hauler driver in that accident. Of course, I'll speak much more on that on tomorrow's show, but simply from what we saw today on the Cup Series side of things, forgive me for taking the easy one here, but getting to go first and picking a first-time winner, it's hard not to give a call to Chase Briscoe, finally breaking through the story that he's had, with some hardships with his wife, Marissa. Great to see them celebrating Victory Lane today, and great for Stewart Haas Racing, who I think, as we talked about earlier on this show, are definitely back trending up. Kevin Harvick, of course, had a strong run again. Eric Almirola has looked very strong in his farewell season, and maybe even Cole Custer can get up there and mix it up a little bit as well. But Chase Briscoe, I'm going to give him my one shining moment on today's show for what he did today.
Yes, and Chase Briscoe is also my grid one shining moment as well. Thinking about the backstory to reach this point in his racing career, because if you heard Chase Briscoe's story, he was this Indiana kid who came down to North Carolina with a dream that he could someday be a NASCAR Cup Series driver, and the late Briggs Cunningham gave him that opportunity to test an ARCA car. Then they signed him on to run full time in the ARCA Menard Series. Goes on to win. and ARCA championship, then got a big opportunity to move up into the top 3 divisions of NASCAR, race with Brad Keselowski racing a NASCAR Cup Series. I mean, in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, that was a great opportunity for him. And unfortunately, his last race with the team, it was filled with both highs and lows. The high was he won at Homestead Miami Speedway, finally got that big win, and the low was that was the end of Brad Keselowski racing in the NASCAR Truck Series. So I feel like Chase Briscoe was kind of rushed up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series a year too soon. Because I felt like he would have done a lot better if he had an extra year in trucks. Also, think the same thing for Austin Cindric as well. When Briscoe, Cindric, and Majeski the following year, they split time in what people called the curse number 60 Roush Fenway Racing Xfinity car, where a whole bunch of things went wrong. That was a really, really trying year for Chase Briscoe. A lot of wrecks, a lot of things going wrong, and it just wasn't Chase Briscoe having the issues. It was Austin Cindric and Ty Majeski as well. Like absolutely everything went wrong, and Chase Briscoe thought, the misfortune in the 60 had really hurt his racing career, that a lot of people would start to look down on him. And then that same year in the 60, he also got some time in Stewart Haas Racing an Xfinity car and ended up winning the Charlotte Roval that year, and that ended up with him getting a full-time opportunity to race with Stewart Haas Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and later on able to win a whole bunch of races in the Xfinity Series, and finally got the call to race in the NASCAR Cup Series. And Ben mentioned the hardships that him and his wife Marissa had, and starting back on the young Indiana boy who was sleeping on people's couches and working around the race shop trying to make ends meet, only to chase a dream. And now he's a NASCAR Cup Series winner. I know that was a really long version of my one shining moment, but I feel like this is such a special story.
Yeah, I could also go with what happened with David Gilliland Racing and Taylor Gray winning, but I'm going to give my Grid One shining moment to Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick. We saw those 3 young drivers all looking for their first Cup victory hold off Kevin Harvick, who's been in the Cup Series for a long, long time. Those 3 young guns impressed me a lot, and we saw Chase Briscoe win his first career win. Well, don't be surprised if we see Ross Chastain and Tyler Reddick also in victory lane this year. Those young kids really impressed me, toward the end of the race and all race long, and also give a call to Taylor Gray, for David Gilliland Racing, after what happened on their way to Phoenix. But for me, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, Ross Chastain, those 3 young kids impressed me, so I'm giving my one shining moment to Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, and Tyler Reddick.
Yeah, great to see so many potential first-time winners fighting up front, and I don't think we've seen the last first-time winner so far this season in 2022. So as I mentioned, tomorrow night, Monday, Brendan and I will be back here for Grid Live Encore, recapping the Xfinity and ARCA Menards Series action at Phoenix Raceway. On Wednesday, Kobe and Adam will report on the biggest stories in motorsports on Grid tonight. Thursday, Daniel from Racers to Girls Behind the Helmet joins Joe for Women in Motorsports. And then it's a super spring weekend of racing with the IMSA Sebring 12 Hours. Grid will have a special pre-race show for the race at Sebring. And then the usual Grid Live pre-race will preview Formula One, IndyCar, MotoGP, and of course NASCAR at the new Atlanta Motor Speedway. You won't want to miss any of our coverage, and of course our Sunday wrap-up show at the end of the weekend to recap all the racing action. You can help keep us on the air all year by clicking the link in the description and signing up for our Patreon. Any amount is greatly appreciated here at the Grid Network and the Grid Ranking. Also, we have Buy Me a Coffee, our one-time donation option for contributions of any amount. You can buy a coffee for Adam, Kobe, me, or any of our other Grid on-air talents. Also, be sure to visit our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home, where you can use the referral code GRIDNET to earn $5 to invest in the stock market. Use their videos, podcasts, and learn from friends. Make new friends as well to utilize the stock market. Lastly, of course, as always, subscribe to the Grid Network right here on YouTube and visit gridranking.com for the 2022 Grid Ranking when that comes out in a few weeks. We do have one final update. It looks like inspection is complete in the Cup Series garage with no issues, so Chase Briscoe is officially the winner. So with that, for Adam Lemarese, Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful week, everyone.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.